4 portion for standard 7th science is heat. While moving into the lesson, I am going to compare both winter season and summer season together. So while discussing about winter season, in winter season we use woolen cloths to retain our warm and our heat with ourselves, while in summer season we use cotton cloths to evaporate, continuous evaporation, and we used to have a coolness towards ourselves. Before entering into heat, the heat and the temperature are very closely related to each other, and we are going to discuss about the heat and temperature together now. So what about heat mean? Heat is a form of energy and its unit is joule and calories. And while discussing about temperature, temperature is the effect of heat and the unit of temperature is Celsius and Fahrenheit. While discussing about temperature, we want to know how the measurement of temperature has been taken place. So to discuss about the measurement of temperature, we want to know what is meant by high temperature and low temperature. The low temperature is used in refrigerators to make the vegetables in a fresh manner, and high temperature I am able to use it in manufacturing companies such as like metals or any other metal items to make it into a liquid form and then form into a into utensils or a vessel form. So while discussing about temperature, I want to say about the thermometers which is used for using to know the temperature. So thermometer is a Latin word which is divided into two, which is called as thermo, which is called as heat, which means heat, and meter, which is called as a device. So thermometer is a Latin word which means thermo means heat and meter means a device which is used to determine the heat or the temperature. We call it as a thermometer, and this thermometer is made out of a glass material which has a bulb, a small bulb at the one of the end, and we have a capillary tube in between. In the tube we have a capillary tube, and here in the bulb we may fill with alcohol or either alcohol or with mercury. We use alcohol and mercury as a liquid which is filled up in the thermometer. I will list out the characteristics of the alcohol and mercury why we are using in the thermometers. And alcohol and thermometers are very good conductors of heat, so we are using in the thermometers. Not only that, and we use this alcohol and thermometers are will have the sustaining power in high temperature, high melting point, and it has very low freezing point. So we are using this alcohol and mercury as a liquid which is kept in the thermometers. And while we are discussing about thermometers, we have to know what are the different types of thermometer ranges what we are using. As I told, in temperature, that is we are using Celsius and the Fahrenheit capacities. So while discussing about Celsius, the name of the Celsius or the Celsius thermometer is introduced by the scientist called as Anders Celsius, and this Fahrenheit is given out by the scientist who is called as the Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit. And while discussing about Celsius and Fahrenheit, the reading in Celsius is from 0.2 to 100 degrees Celsius, and in Fahrenheit it's from 32 Fahrenheit to 212 Fahrenheit degree. And while discussing about Celsius, we have the parts of 100 parts, and each part is equal to 1 degree and 1 degree Celsius. And while discussing about Fahrenheit, it has 180 parts and each part is out of 1 degree Fahrenheit. And while discussing about Fahrenheit and Celsius, we have to know what is the relation between the Fahrenheit and Celsius. While discussing about the relationship about Fahrenheit and Celsius, we want to know that is Celsius minus 0, that is the 0th point, divided by 100, which is the upper fixed point, is equal to Fahrenheit minus 32, which is the lower fixed point, and divided by the part which is 180 in between. And in the equation format, I can make it into as Fahrenheit is equal to 1.8, Celsius plus 32, and this I have made as equation number 2, and in Celsius is equal to 0.556 approximately, and F, that is Fahrenheit minus 32, that I have made into a third equation. While discussing about this relationship, I want to tell about two words which is called as upper fixed point and lower fixed point. First we will start with upper fixed point, which is called as here 100 degrees centigrade and here 212 degrees Fahrenheit. While discussing about upper fixed point, which means when I am making the temperature of boiling water, that I call it as upper fixed point. If I am taking out the temperature of the ice melts, that I call it as lower fixed point. So this is lower fixed point and this is upper fixed point. As we are discussing about Celsius and Fahrenheit, we want to know the conversion between the Celsius and Fahrenheit. To convert the Celsius in Fahrenheit or Fahrenheit into Celsius, I start up with conversion into Celsius, that is the human body temperature is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit and I am going to convert into Celsius format. Just check out that C, that is Celsius divided by 100 is equal to Fahrenheit. The Fahrenheit what I am going to add is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit minus 32, which is the starting point or lower fixed point of Fahrenheit, that is 32 divided by 180, which is the parts, is equal to 0.556, which is approximately, while the 100 is taken towards the opposite side, that is 100 divided by 180 is 0.556 into 66.6. So the equation, that is the Celsius what I have observed for Fahrenheit conversion into Celsius is 37 degrees Celsius. So this is the human body temperature in Celsius, while comparing with the Fahrenheit temperature is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. While discussing about thermometer, we want to know what are the different types of thermometer what we are usually using in our day-to-day life. That is, we have three important topics of different topics of thermometers, that is clinical thermometers, and second one is laboratory thermometers, and the third one is which is called as the digital thermometers. The clinical thermometer what we are usually using is this type of thermometers which we are using in the clinical purpose. For example, doctor's thermometer is the main name of this thermometer, and in this doctor's thermometer we have a constriction which what we are able to observe over here. This is called as a constriction. Why it is used is, while we are measuring the temperature of the human body, if this constriction was not there, after removing out from the human body, which is we are using in the under of the tongue or in armpit, the temperature will be falls down easily if we don't have this constriction. Because of that purpose, we are using this constriction in the human body temperature analyzing thermometers such as the clinical thermometers. This kind of thermometers we are using in laboratory purpose, and it stands from not from 0 degrees centigrade Celsius, but it stands from minus 10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. It will be ranging between in laboratory thermometers. And while comparing with the clinical thermometers, it will be absorbed in Fahrenheit, and we have 2 or 3 precautions, and we have to be very cautious with using this thermometer, because the first point is we have to note whether the thermometer is at the lower fixed point below 35 degrees Fahrenheit. If it is Celsius. And while discussing about laboratory thermometer, it is made up of glass and or steel, stainless steel materials, and this laboratory thermometers, when we are using, it should not touch the surface of the container what we are going to heat, and it should be standing in a right position. We should not flip down or tilt down. So it have to be in a straight line while we are using in a container. And this thermometer as usual what we are using, well between these two, the digital is other one what we are usually using in nowadays. That is the digital thermometers where we are using in clinical purpose, and in digital thermometers we don't have any mercury. So here we have mercury as I told earlier. So when the heat expands, the heat gets, if the metal receives the heat, it starts expanding, so it raises up. When the coldness we absorb, it just contracts down. This is the principle of the thermometer what we are using. So the topic of thermometer heat is ended now, and now we'll start with a new concept called as the transfer modes of heat. So while discussing about the transfer modes of heat, we are going to discuss about the 3 important topics, which is called as convection, conduction, and the other one is radiation topic. While discussing about conduction, we know that conduction is a very good example for conduction is, just imagine a construction of building is going out. So the bricks will be transferred from one person to another person to move into that building area. So that along, that is the moving from one person to another person, we call it as conduction. And when the person who is at the near to the brisk, if he takes out and if he went to the place where they are dropping it down, that is called as convection. And what is radiation means, if a person who is near to the brisk throws out the brisk, is called as the radiation. These are the major difference between the conduction, convection and radiation. We will come back to the topic conduction first. Conduction means the transfer of heat from one particle to another particle without having any medium is called as the conduction. And this conduction is of two types, that is what we usually call it as good conductor and bad conductor. This bad conductor we usually call it as insulators. While discussing about convection, convection means when a particle or the transfer of heat from one person is taking place, they are lifting the material and taking into the other place, that I call it as the convection. For example, we use this sea breeze and land breeze are the very good example of convection. For example, the cold air will move towards the hot air and they will wind up all the hot air and will form a breeze. That is called as the process of sea breeze and land breeze. The cold air will move towards the hot air, that is called as a breeze. While discussing about convection, the radiation means a radiation or the polished layer will be at the back of the container and that will radiate the light or heat, which means it will absorb a very little amount of heat and will give out a maximum amount of heat will be giving out. So that is called as a radiation. While comparing together conduction, convection and radiation, I am able to have a thermoflask over here. So thermoflask is which contains all the three mediums, which is called as conduction, convection and radiation. While discussing about thermoflask, we have three major parts in thermoflask, which is called as inner layer and vacuum layer, and next is the outer layer. While discussing about outer layer, first I start from outer layer, which is the heat, the loss of heat due to conduction will be taken place in the outer layer, which means we have an insulator in the outer layer. So loss of heat will be minimized in the outer layer. If it is in the vacuum state, here also we have a vacuum space and this area also we have a vacuum space. So as it is a vacuum space, it also minimizes the loss of heat. It is done by due to the convection, the outer surface which has the radiation. And from this, because of this radiation, it absorbs the energy. So because of this, due to this, the radiation, we don't have any loss of heat. So these are about the convection, conduction and the radiation concept with thermoflask. And the lesson heat is over, ended with this concept, which is called as heat, temperature, thermometer, different types of thermometers, and the conduction, convection, and the last one is radiation about the thermoflask. Thank you.